the big news, first off the ball segment.
Huge.
DeAndre Hopkins, traded to the Chiefs. If you've listened to this podcast in recent weeks, though, you'll know that DeAndre Hopkins has not been a podcast favorite in terms of his on-field performance. We've pretty much said he is an underneath possession receiver at this point. The big plays, the downfield ability, basically gone for the mid-30s wide receiver. But he can catch, at least. And he has some size.
Great.
So for the Kansas City Chiefs, it's a 5th-round pick that could become a 4th.
Tremendous value. It's tremendous value. And I think you can't get caught up as a football fan and analyzing this trade as, well, that's not the same DeAndre Hopkins. You have to think about it from the Chiefs' point of view. It's like we are adding another guy to this arsenal that Patrick Mahomes can rely on. And you said it. He can catch. He can catch. He can go underneath. He gives another option. And people were talking about how this Chiefs offense has been, the depth of target isn't very impressive. Well, it doesn't matter. This team can be whoever it wants to be. They can run the football effectively. The screen game is always a threat to the defense. And now you add a guy like Hopkins, and I think him and Mahomes will hit it off immediately. I mean, what receiver would not want to play with Patrick Mahomes?
Without a doubt, this is such a Kansas City Chiefs move. Remember, Kadarius Toney, even though it didn't work out there, it worked out for that one Super Bowl, right? And that's essentially why they're bringing DeAndre Hopkins in. You lose Rashee Rice for the rest of the year. Juju Smith-Schuster is dealing with a hamstring.
Hollywood Brown.
Yeah, Hollywood Brown. Like, their depth is minimal right now at the receiver position. I think Andy Reid's done a masterful job of, being inventive on offense by using more tight ends. But to your point, Mike, right, this isn't the same DeAndre Hopkins we're used to seeing it with the Texans or Arizona, but he can catch the ball. But I always find it interesting, and you can speak to this, Kyle, when guys get traded, how they get an influx of energy, right? Could we potentially see the guy that we saw the first year with the Tennessee Titans that was a downfield threat that could go up and still make the contested catches because now he's playing for a contender, right? Amari Cooper, the same thing. This was probably his worst start to his career this year with the Cleveland Browns. Touchdown catch Sunday versus Buffalo Bills. Like, it's always interesting.
He didn't even know where to go.
Exactly.
Told him where to go.
Exactly. It's always interesting that guys get an influx of energy once they know they're going to a team where they actually have a chance to win football games. So, there was a tweet that came out a few years ago where, DeAndre Hopkins tweeted, like, Patrick Mahomes is amazing, and now he gets to go play for him. So I can't wait to see how Andy Reid is going to use him again. Like, he's not going to be that guy that's going to be your true number one receiver anymore. But I do think because of his size and his ability to catch the ball, he could be somebody that you use in the red zone.
Yeah, I think you saw that with, like you mentioned, going to a new spot. All of a sudden you're on a contender and kind of brings that juice back. I think it was Von Miller when he got traded to the Rams after the Broncos. He was kind of just like fine. People were like, oh, is Von on the decline? All of a sudden that playoff stretch, he was not on the decline whatsoever. So I'm not saying that's going to happen. I don't think he's going to get his speed back, but I do think you'll see a little bit more locked in. And from the Chiefs' perspective, what they did with Rashee Rice, they don't have a guy in the roster that can do that in terms of, they were spreading teams out, getting him in the slot, matched up one-on-one, and just knew he could win that route. Xavier Worthy's not that guy. Travis Kelce at this point isn't that guy. I think DeAndre Hopkins, at least you can still trust him to win slant routes consistently and haul those in. And they just didn't have that at this point. That's why the offense looked the way the offense looked. So.
Yeah, you spark a fire, when you are in a situation that is essentially hopeless in Tennessee with their current situation, and you get an opportunity to go to a team like the Kansas City Chiefs. I think about my 8 years in Chicago, and we had some good teams, but I knew that we were never going to win a Super Bowl with that roster. I took a year off from football, thought I was done with it. I fell out of love with football at the end, and then you get an opportunity to go play for the Chiefs. And when you walk into that building, and when you're in the team meeting room and Andy Reid's at the front of the room and he's got to get Travis to shut up so he can get his meeting started and the guys laugh and, it's like you can feel that it's a family. D-Hop's going to feel that. His love for the game, I'm sure, will be sparked, and this will be a catalyst for some really good performances from DeAndre Hopkins.
I want to go back to something that Mike said when he compared this kind of like to Von Miller, his last year in Denver, where he was playing decent football, but kind of took it to the next level when he went to the Rams. And to your point, right, when you go to a place, you get an influx of energy, especially when you know that roster has the ability to contend for a Super Bowl. We were actually having a candid conversation about other potential trades at the deadline. I know people were saying the Detroit Lions need to trade for Aiden Hutchinson. They need to trade for Aiden Hutchinson. But I liken the Aiden Hutchinson situation to the Von Miller situation, right? To me, not the Max Crosby situation is what I'm saying. Max Crosby, to me, through and through, is a Raider. Like, Von Miller was through and through a Denver Bronco. but he was at the end, towards the end of his career, right? And that's where I could see maybe if Max doesn't get to the pinnacle, doesn't get a championship ring by like year 9, 10, or 11, where he maybe takes that Von Miller route. I just think it's too early in his career. And again, he's earned the right to potentially say, I want out of here, because he's literally laid it on the line for the Raiders since day one, right? But if you're the Raiders, this is literally the face of your franchise.
Yeah.
Like, what would that say going forward to guys that potentially want to come in there as free agent? And then the rest of the team, if you were to trade a guy like Max Crosby. So I know a lot of people were saying, throw whatever it takes, Detroit, to get Max Crosby. The thing about Aaron Glenn is he likes to send pressure anyway. Right now, again, Aiden Hutchinson was on a trajectory to be Defensive Player of the Year, and one player can't replace him. Now, Max Crosby could potentially do that, right? But I think by scheme, like, I think the Lions will be okay. One, because their offense is damn near unstoppable. But two, Aaron Glenn finally has the corners to play in the scheme that he wants to play in. To me right now, Brian Branch should be in first place for Defensive Player of the Year. He's playing out of his mind.
Fabulous. I think what you're saying, and I want to hammer this home because it's important. There's certain guys, it's like the scene of The Departed when Leo DiCaprio, he's drinking his cranberry juice, he gets made fun of, and then he hits a guy, and the guy says, I'm the guy who says who you can hit and who you can't hit. Well, there's certain guys that you can trade, and there's certain guys that you can't trade.
For sure.
They're fixers in their locker room. Myles Garrett in Cleveland
100%.
is one name that you and I were talking about. Max Crosby. These guys, that's a Brown and that's a Raider. And that's kind of holy ground that you don't touch there.
For sure.
But to your point about Von Miller, he played the entire career. He played one man's career for one team and then was able to get that pass like, it's okay, you can go home now.
For sure.
So Max Crosby isn't quite there yet. I mean, people would point fingers and say, but you said you were a Raider for life. Once he reaches that, 9-year mark, whatever it is, whatever we say the threshold is, then he gets that free pass. If he goes to a place like Detroit or Kansas City down the road and gives a chance to win a Super Bowl, then we can't really blame him because he did give his heart and his soul to the team.
100%.
Yeah, to put some numbers to it, Von Miller was 32 when he was traded to the Rams. Max Crosby's 27.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's just like
still young.
completely different. Everyone thinks it makes sense from the Lions' perspective, and yeah, it does, but from the Raiders' perspective,
Makes
you're like,
no sense
if I have any chance,
If the Raiders want to
around,
rebuild, you keep a guy like Max Crosby and you can
is-
look up at that shining light and say, that's who you want to be like.
But it didn't say it's a brand name. This is a brand name right here. Like, you don't trade away the faces of your franchise, right? Because that will set you back like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.